It is 2025. Perfect time for a top 10 prediction list. So in this video, we're going to go over those top 10 predictions and what I think we'll see in the rapidly changing field of filmmaking. Now, unsurprisingly, there is a bunch of AI in these predictions, but it is not just about AI. It is about filmmaking in general. So we've got cameras in the predictions, we've got virtual production, we've got post-production, video editing, and a whole bunch more. So let's jump into it. All right, so number one, more accessible virtual production tools with smaller setups. So this is something that we already saw at the end of last year. Nant released their dynamic volume system, a virtual production studio with movable LED walls so you could reconfigure the space, move it around, and not just be tied into having a volume set up in a large space. Now that's much more on the higher, bigger end, but we've been seeing a trend of just smaller studios, smaller stages in general. Vue released their Vue 1, which is a pretty small setup, small stage, and then they released an even smaller, the Vue 1 Mini, which is sort of like a big roll-around TV that you can do a lot with in virtual production. They also have their accessible software, their virtual studio. For the Vue 1 Mini, we've got a whole video in depth about that, so you can check that out. ARwall, they've been making accessible virtual production tools with ARwall StudioBox, a self-contained computer where you can just plug it in and run a virtual production scene out of the box with easy-to-use software. And they also have bundle kits where you could use a Sony TV as your backdrop for smaller, very small virtual production setups. Meptik from Disguise, they have their portable studio in a box. Similar idea. If you need to just have something that is more configurable, you don't want to dedicate a whole setup to building out an LED volume or virtual production stage, you have the studio kit in a box. You can roll it out and set it up. So we've already been seeing the smaller trend. I think that's only going to continue even further. And to being able to do more with virtual production on smaller setups, more affordably, and something that I've always been interested in, easier tools to use for creators that doesn't involve Unreal Engine or a whole team of experts to be able to pull this off. And that's ties into something that I'll get to in another prediction and a few more numbers. But this trend, I think, will continue to see. And also, I think we'll also see a rise in extended reality tools that also ties into other AI updates. So extended reality, where it's like if you just use a small enough screen to cover your subjects or your actors, but you still want that wide shot, or you still want to crop out, or you still want to be able to show feet, being able to use extended reality to extend that set, either based on a virtual Unreal Engine scene or Blender scene, or generate it with AI so you can get those wider shots, but still get that real-time aspect, that in-camera visual effects aspect of shooting with a monitor or with a wall behind your subjects. Number two, 3D space is going to be the next big Gen AI focus. Again, we saw this a little bit at the end of 2024, especially with World Labs, which sort of released their paper. It's not public yet, but their paper where you could take a still image and turn it into a navigatable 3D space. We have a whole video on World Labs. But then there was some other software that did similar things. Genie 2, Cat 4D, same idea. You can give it a still image and it can generate and transform that image into a 3D space. What are the advantages of this? Well, if you just have a single image and you're able to, or a collection of images, the more images, hopefully the better, and you can turn it into a navigatable 3D space, that opens up a lot of opportunities, especially virtual production, especially with accessible virtual production, where now you have a 3D scene where you can shoot your talent and have that consistency that's hard to get with generative AI environments. You can have a camera looking this way, you can have a camera looking this way, and still be in that same consistent environment, which if you're just generating an angle from here with a still shot, an angle from here with a still shot, it's really hard to do to have the same consistent environment. So image to 3D, image, whether that is a real world space, or maybe you're trying to do pickups, maybe you have a clean plate of some real environment you shot in, but you need to do some pickups. You can take that, turn it into a 3D space, go to an LED volume, shoot your pickups. Whether you're doing something like that or generative AI, we want to generate a 3D space, you have an image, you want to turn it into a 3D space. A lot of opportunities here. We've already seen a little bit of that happening at the end of 2024. This is only going to get a lot bigger in 2025. All right, number three, tying into my first one, accessible virtual production, rise of LED wall-less virtual production. So virtual production is really a big blanket phrase, and so I'm just using it here. It's sort of become known as virtual production, Mandalorian style, you're shooting a big LED wall volume. But we've been seeing updates and tools. I don't think this will be prime time ready yet this year, but I think we will start seeing a lot of progress in this direction. And everyone I've talked to in the virtual production space, a lot of people I've talked to that are forward thinking in the virtual production space, see LED walls as a stopgap to get to the next stage, which is basically you just shoot it and we're able to use AI to keep the people, but replace the environment. I think we will start getting hints of the direction that is going in this year. We saw a big teaser from Beeble, aka SwitchLight, who we interviewed at NAB last year, where they could, at the NAB demo, they could take a shot and then you could give it an HDRI image and completely relight a video scene. And they have demos of this of driving plates, people just driving in a car and a green screen. And then you can just replace the background environment and the lighting and the reflections all in post-production. A key use case right now of virtual production, having those LED panels, but being able to do the same thing just all in post with a few clicks. Extremely interesting. So that was something they teased last year. What they just teased a few weeks ago is basically shooting a person on a chair that sort of is in the same shape of a bike and then completely replacing everything around that person, putting them on a bicycle in a cyberpunk scene and relighting them. Didn't look final pixel ready, but you could see where things are going, where in the future, if we can just use real people, get them in the position that we want, don't even need to be on a green screen. The AI can just identify the person, the body, and replace it with props, models, lighting, scene. I think we're going to see a lot of progress in that space of LED wall-less or just environment-less virtual production. Film people, replace them with whatever you want. We also see this in Skyglass. They released a couple updates at the end of last year too. A bit more just focused on smartphones and iPads, but the tech and stuff is very interesting. And we did use this extensively on our AI short, Skillet and the Jetport Diner. So we talked about that process in that video that you can check out. But they released some updates where it can put your person in a virtual prop. So like if someone was riding in a helicopter, you could just shoot your person in a room, but place them in a virtual object in your virtual scene and have that virtual camera move happen while you're just filming them with a real camera. They also have other updates where it does take post-processing, but you can film a scene with a person and then send it up to their cloud processing, and it will relight that scene to match the lighting environment of whatever virtual scene that you film the person in. Number 4, the end of text prompting, more visual and intuitive ways to steer generative AI. So I think we are going to continue to see a slew of new ways to interact with AI tools and generate with AI tools. We started seeing this towards the second half or last quarter of 2024. Luma Dream Machine, they had a complete revamp of their software towards the end of last year. A lot more focus on visual inputs, either just using very basic plain language to start with your input and then using those images to remix them. A lot of different options for taking visual images and kind of reinterpreting them into something else. Less focus on the text prompting. Same with Sora. There are a couple of options there too for how you prompt. One of the bigger, more interesting things was the storyboard, where instead of having a long text prompt of trying to describe what you're looking for and the timing, you could have your text prompts on a timeline or a storyboard to dictate like the timing of when you want things to happen. Another way to input and influence your AI generations. Also, Runway kind of teased, they didn't really release this, but it was a paper of their graph structure of latent space. So another visual way to kind of see how it is generating the videos and potentially interact or shape it in a future way. We did see their camera control update that they released towards the end of last year, where you could visually see, click and drag, how you want the camera to move in the generative AI space. So I think that's just scratching the surface. I think we're going to see a lot more interesting tools and ways to navigate and work with AI space. Obviously, what I'm really hoping for is some way to use something like a phone or a virtual phone or virtual camera to mimic what we're used to with actually filming with a real camera, but translate that into AI space. All right, number 5. This one's sort of a two-parter, but the main theme is return to local. So storage will shift back to on-prem and AI models run locally. So 2 parts here, but the first part, the bigger focus that has impacted us directly and a lot of people that I've talked to, storage will shift back to on-prem. So we've had this huge, big push to the cloud. Everything's going to be in the cloud. The cloud's the future. Put all of your media on the cloud. The cloud's expensive. And I think as there's also no downsizing the cloud. It's very hard to downsize. Once you put stuff on the cloud, it's kind of stuck there. It's a big pain to then navigate or figure out what you want to get off the cloud. And you're paying for it every month, and that monthly price only keeps increasing. We're relatively small compared to other media operations. So we have a NAS. It's got about 40 terabytes-ish of active storage, and that's just for our active projects. I still have to offload and put stuff elsewhere to clear out inactive projects. But there are companies that are, working with petabytes. That is not uncommon, multiple petabytes of data. That's very expensive to put on the cloud. So I think we're going to see a refocus of back to having on-prem storage solutions, whether that's NAS, whether that's people having their own servers. That stuff, obviously already exists. It's more of the tools and hardware to support that will have a shift back to that. All right. And then also running AI models locally. I feel like partly that is another cost feature where if you could just kind of build out or have some computers running NVIDIA cards and run and train your models locally, or just run other existing models if you want to analyze footage, stuff like that. This is sort of how Axle AI runs, which we've done videos on them about. You don't have to load stuff up to the cloud. Partly that can tie into security reasons. Partly that can also just tie into cost reasons where you could just run it all locally, build out your hardware. I think we'll see another bounce back to that. And also, if you get into the level of training your models, I feel like that's going to be a bit more understood and adopted, both for the sense of cost of like being able to train your models locally and being able to train it on data that you know where that data came from, which can tie into rights issues and other separate issues from like using large data models. Training your models locally, I feel like that'll also be more hardware, more understood, more tools and support around that. Number 6, Agentic AI will start improving workflows. So honestly, Agentic AI was not so much on my radar. And I think at first maybe I misunderstood what exactly it was. I heard agent. I thought it was more about chatbots and other things like that. But it's a completely different form of AI that sort of has 3 key aspects behind it that's different from like a ChatGPT or large language model. It has autonomy, it has adaptability, and it has goal-oriented behavior. So it's basically AI that can do things, take action, learn from it, and then improve itself as it continues to take action. As I said, this wasn't really on my radar, but then I was at the production summit and Rick Champagne from NVIDIA, one of the VP of media entertainment at NVIDIA, said that Agentic AI was going to be the next big thing and was on his radar for 2025. That put it on my radar. I'm not going to take that lightly. So I am currently digging into this more. This is just going to be a very scrape the surface explanation because I'm still figuring out what this means and what this can do. But for some like practical uses of how this could apply to film production, this could definitely apply to post-production of having to take action, media management, organizing, going through footage, organizing the footage, possibly making radio edits or rough cuts, give it a script and let it make a rough cut. Basically things that it can take action on the computer. It can make decisions-ish. Obviously, I'm going to take out the creative decision part, but just automating assistant tasks that we normally would associate with assistant editor or other assistant roles. That's probably the most obvious and interesting practical use case that I see now. But again, I'm sort of trying to just understand and dig into this. So we'll have more content about that in the future. But it's on my radar. I think it should be on your radar for the next thing that's going to evolve and happen in AI. All right. And number 7, more collaborative tools for post-production workflows. One of the biggest things that I enjoyed last year and changed our workflow was Blackmagic Cloud. Done a bunch of videos on that, so I'm not going to go into it again. But they've revamped and built a tool set that has made collaborative editing extremely seamless and work really well. I would be surprised if we don't see more tools on that from other major NLEs, especially Adobe Premiere. That one's always been a head scratcher because they do have a team collaborative feature. It's more just about the projects, but they own Frame. I know they've sort of kept it separate because they don't want, I'm guessing, annoy anyone that uses Frame, but separate from Premiere, and just kind of keep them having their separate identities. Again, that's just my guess. But Frame has great media storage, very fast media storage. I'm surprised there isn't just more integration of like push your proxies from your Premiere project to Frame so everyone could collaborate on them. I would be surprised if we don't see more progress in that. I don't know, maybe. They've been doing a big push on the generative AI, so maybe that's their focus. But maybe we'll see something at NAB that opens up more collaborative tools. Collaboration has been something, remote collaboration, especially remote tools, has been something that's proven itself that can work really well in post-production workflows. So I would expect to see more progress there. Just highlights of like other tools that have been making this possible. You could have solutions that work on local machines, then you have your editors remotely log in, so then you don't have to worry about all of these file syncing issues. It's just like, hey, pipe in to our machine, and you can use something like Parsec to have real-time access into a machine that you're accessing remotely. We've got PostLab, which we talked about extensively, that helps make collaboration with other tools extremely easy. And then also for review sessions, Blackmagic has some live review session tools, which we haven't dug into but they exist. I've got Louper, which is also sort of a remote real-time collaboration tool to review and watch edits and give notes, sort of like a Zoom on steroids for video editing. So we've seen those tools. I only expect we'll see more developments in that. And I think just more expectations for like, especially post teams. A lot of post teams now are just doing stuff remotely. And we'll see more tools that support that. All right, number 8 prediction here. Stock footage and stock music will mostly be AI generated. I feel like it's been kind of obvious that this will be the first thing to go, something that is generic, easily replicatable shot of a drone shot of a vista or drone shot of a cliffside or just droney background music. First thing to be replaced by AI. I would say if you are in that space, if you are making things in that space, the way to fight against that would be to get very specific in the type of stock footage that you are offering, the type of stuff that the AI just isn't good at replicating or doesn't have a good training set of data, or just very specific location stuff. Or just maybe stock footage sites will just change into more of like a request network where it's like you need a very specific shot of like a street in some small town in Italy. And then you just put out a request and get someone to film that for you because it's too specific for AI generate or just, it wouldn't be right for it to be generated. But the generic stuff, the generic corporate reaction shot kind of stuff, I feel like that's just the training data is there. Even we've seen with VO2 how good it is at replicating influencers and stuff because it's trained on YouTube data, I believe. That type of stuff, that type of corporate-y, high-key, brightly lit, smiling, shaking hand type stuff is going to be AI generated, my prediction. So if you're in that space, I would look for other things or get specific. Number 9, immersive content will increase, but not for Apple Vision Pro. So middle of last year, Blackmagic announced the Immersive Cine camera, which was built in partnership and specifically for creating content for the Apple Vision Pro. If you've been looking at the media in this last week that I'm recording this video, it was announced that, or rumored that Apple was stopping production on the Apple Vision Pro. Now, that doesn't mean that they're giving up on the Vision Pro. That just means that they've made enough for what they predict will be the demand, and that they can just shelve them and they don't need to keep making more. This is separate from the rumored that they will be launching a less expensive, lighter version of the Vision Pro, either this year, 2025, or next year in 2026. So I would not take that to mean like, oh, Apple's giving up on the Vision Pro. It's just, obviously we all know the demand wasn't there for this expensive, very cool, but very expensive headset. That said, I'm still, I just want the immersive cine camera to like do well, and I'm still bullish on the need for immersive content for 180 17K high quality immersive content. So separate from the Vision Pro, if we look at what else is out there, what else could use this type of super high res, super immersive video, biggest one, literally the biggest one, is the Sphere. Now, I'm not saying the Immersive Cine is going to be shooting stuff for the Sphere. They have their Big Sky custom built camera, but the Sphere proved that there is an appetite for these large immersive venues. So we have Cosm, which is here in LA and in Dallas, which is sort of like a mini Sphere. It kind of goes viral every few weeks on my TikTok feed for showing sports games. But they do make separate films and movies that just play at the Cosm, sort of like, seems like similar vibe of stuff you would have seen at your like planetarium or like at your IMAX theater at your museum when they weren't playing movies and they were playing it with other stuff like L5, City in Space. Anyone remember that one? So yeah, we've got Cosm. I expect we'll see a lot more of these types of venues, nothing as big as a Sphere, but stuff that's still IMAX-ish size, very cool, that needs content. And then also we've been seeing a rise in immersive experiences, those pop-up museums, the Van Gogh experience, the Balloon Museum, which we just went to, was a lot of fun. Aside from having the physical objects, well, I've never done the Van Gogh one and I've heard mixed things about that, but it's very big, either projectors or very big LED walls, and they need content. And you need high-res content if you want to do it well, and stuff that shoots high-res like a 17K sensor in the Blackmagic Cine camera. Now, obviously, there's the 17K Cine camera, but I'm still bullish, or I'm still hopeful that the immersive Cine camera, for having that wide angle perspective, that will still have uses. And there's the workflow for it now, too. We have the tools now. We have the camera. Blackmagic Resolve supports editing that footage. We also have other headsets that are less expensive from Meta and Vive and other companies, or Sony. So yeah, I'm still, maybe the Vision Pro wasn't the like huge thing that obviously it wasn't the huge thing that Apple hoped for, but I still think there's a market for large scale immersive videos. Look, we've been getting a new IMAX camera. So it's there. People want big things. People want to be back in person. I still think there's hope for immersive videos. And number 10, real-time AI and AI hardware interfaces. So I think one of the biggest unlocks that will happen with AI is when you do things and you're able to see the effect of your doing things in real time. Whether that's generating, we can kind of see this in Korea already has a version of this where you can manipulate objects and see your outputs in real time. But I think if we start seeing that even more, or stuff like Runway, Midjourney, all of these other main tools where as soon as you do something, you can see the effects of what's happening. That's like one aspect of the real time. I think the more interesting, more powerful aspect will be when we can see this happening with actual hardware, with actual cameras. So we filmed the AI video camera. It was more of like a concept piece. We have the video of that, but being able to see that AI video camera, the camera would basically record and then upload the video footage to the cloud, do the processing, and bring it back, and you'd see how your clip was transformed. So it was a concept, but taking that and being able to do that in real time, where if like I'm looking through a camera and my camera is also able to segment in real time, so it's able to like isolate the person and keep them separate and then change the background to something completely different, that would be extremely powerful. And I think that would be a whole unlock of like new possibilities. I think we'll maybe get some like concept pieces of that this year. Nothing that's like an actual production. But yeah, this was a trend. We talked to Phil Galler from Lux Machina at View's Virtually Everything Summit last year. This was sort of his prediction of like, and he helped develop like a lot of the original tech for virtual production. This is the next phase where he sees things going of like just the camera, you film real people, you replace everything else. Also at the end of last year, NVIDIA announced the Jetset Nano, which is like a small AI supercomputer-ish. As best as I know, this is my knowledge starts showing its gaps that I need to fill in this year. But yeah, something like that small that could be doing potentially real-time processing using AI models on a camera they were filming. A lot of possibility there. So yeah, and I also think tying into the AI video camera, just more hardware tools too. Like we have, Stream Decks and other things, but just more tools to physically control and manipulate AI. Tying into what I was saying earlier with the other trend of less text prompting and more visual inputs. So yeah, those are my top 10 trends, things I'm keeping my eye on, things I think that we'll see that will happen in 2025. Also the rate that AI is going, this could happen in the next 3 months, and then there's a whole other 9 months of things to happen in 2025. And I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff that we have not even thought of or imagined that will happen. But yeah, let me know what you thought of these, or if I missed any, if you got any predictions of your own. And I did promise, so what I would keep my eye on, especially if I was trying to stay ahead of this, and if I worked, I do work in media entertainment, but the things that I'm trying to focus on and what you can focus on if you want to stay ahead of this. I don't want to say learn these specific tools because they all change so rapidly. Obviously, just keep your eye on the main ones, but definitely just mess around. Just get in there, try to create things, try to just mess around, kind of understand how they work. And it doesn't just have to be about generative AI or making images. It could be about your whole workflow process. So if you're editing, kind of question every step of your process and see where can you fit other tools in, tools that can analyze your footage, tools that can help you sort things. And even if you don't know, because a lot of times it's just I don't know what these tools can do, I've come to just start asking Claude or Perplexity. Perplexity has been one of my new favorite tools that I learned about last year. Asking it, I'm trying to do this thing. What are some options of things, other AI tools I can use or do to help speed up this process? And it usually comes back with some pretty decent ideas or things that I can go down rabbit holes and explore and learn. The other thing that I'm also trying to mess around with more is coding. I do not have a coding background or anything, but now there are so many, the no code tools now are basically just AI chatbots or text prompts, tell it what you want and it'll build out the code for you. So I've got Cursor, got Bolt, got Replit. I'm dabbling in those to build out tools to help speed up processes and other things. Trying to figure out scripting in Blackmagic. So are there ways there where I can just have it analyze footage or automatically sort footage, build out scripts that can sort footage? I'm just scratching the surface on that. We'll have more videos once I figure out some other things there. But I would say analyze every step of your process and talk to the AI tools to figure out how can you speed up things, how can you automate things? Because also if you're the one that understands how to do this, if you're an editor who also can be partly your AE because you know how to have the different AI tools, help organize, tag, sort your footage, bring in markers, clean up, do rough cuts, whatever, your skill set is way more valuable. And the other thing that I would keep an eye on, tying into all of the models and the tools and the things that do is just to kind of understand what does what. But for me, I'm digging into Comfy UI. It just keeps popping up more and more. And I know it's the next level to like having more control and more ability to do things, and more tools that have like web interfaces like Kling or LTX video. They make nodes for Comfy UI. So basically, Comfy UI can be the central spot, and you can just start plugging in different models and different workflow processes to do interesting things. And so that is the next thing that I'm focusing on, because I feel like that if I can have a central understanding of that, it opens up a lot more possibilities to bring in other tools and kind of achieve more of the creative things that we're trying to do that I keep hitting roadblocks against using the web interfaces of these tools. So yeah, hopefully this wasn't too convoluted, and there are some practical takeaways from there. And then obviously, if you do want to stay up on the latest tools, updates, news, all this stuff that is happening very quickly, check out VP Land. We got the newsletter, goes out twice a week. And then obviously we have this YouTube channel, which please subscribe if you feel like this video was useful, informative, and you would like to stay ahead of all the new stuff that we got coming out. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.